verses 31 and 32, where it says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you each, to sift each of you like wheat. That's interesting, it says each of you. But I have pleaded in prayer for you, Simon, that your faith should not fail. So when you have repented and turned to me again, strengthen your brothers. So, very common.
You need to go?
We're ready to go, sir.
Okay. I want to talk about you guys as leaders and just some of the nuts and bolts expectations and how this thing works. As leaders, as I think I talked to most of you about this, but you're going to need to recruit at least 2 other people to pray with you, all right? And Steve, not to set a high bar, Steve, where are you at? How many?
7 count myself.
Okay, 7. He's already up to 7, so no pressure or anything.
I didn't know we were about to start yet.
Hey, I don't need your excuses for that.
You might want to work the number.
70 times 7.
7 times.
Does it say record?
Oh, that, okay.
Yeah,
It just
Steve,
is
bump the
twisted,
camera.
so I have you.
Do I look good?
Yeah.
Drink it in. Thank you,
It's
Prescott.
kind of a big deal.
Thanks, Prescott.
I think we'll probably edit that part.
I like raw data, raw food. Okay, so anyway, a big part of what you're going to do is you're going to be working with the pastor that's over your ministry to develop a prayer list. So I'm going to go over it real quick just so you kind of know who you're going to be talking to. Alex, you're going to be working with Season. Prescott, you're going to be working with Norm Smith. Rachel, you're working with Jody. Okay. And then also, so Alex is going to be working with praying over college students. Prescott, men's ministry. Todd Bingham's not here, but he's going to be praying over the congregational care prayer team. Rachel's going to be working over the admins. She's going to get with Jody. Andrew is not here, but he's going to be working, praying over the students with that are in VI. He'll be working with Steve Jones. Kelly's going to be praying about the new addition to the church. He'll be working with me. Beth, you're going to be praying over the interns. You're going to be reporting to Steve Jones. Watch out, he's kind of a tyrant. I'd watch out for him. I just find myself so entertaining. Anita, again, Anita's not here. Never mind. Oh, but she'll be working with Steve also.
Over what?
We're Fountain City.
I love hearing what we're all kind of.
Oh yeah. Bethany, you'll be working with the Welcome Ministry. She'll be working with Mark. I don't need to say.
Makes sense.
Tricia, you'll be working with Jody Payton, praying over the widows of Vineyard. Steve, you'll be working with evangelism, and you'll be reporting or working with Gina Hannah. Watch out, she's been in prison, so. We'll definitely edit that part out.
For your sake.
So is Paul.
We're all praying for you right now.
Thank you. You should.
You didn't feel all those flash prayers.
Shane, you're going to be praying over, we have Shane praying over, there's about 5 subjects that are very just general subjects that we feel are very important, not specific ministries, but very important. So Shane's going to be praying for our government, which is a great time to be doing that. He and I will be working together on that. Brian will be praying over Kansas City. Again, he'll work with me on that. Debbie, I know. So luck of the draw. So like the law, you just won the lottery. Debbie, you're going to be praying over marriages, and also you and I will work together on that as well. So anyway, the reason that you guys were all picked, you were all picked through the pastor that was over that area because for the following reason. There will be times when ideally it'd be great if the pastor every month on cue would give you, here's a new list of things to pray for. Pastors don't do that. I've pounded them, I've tried to intimidate them, it doesn't work. And it does go, I'll get it to you. I'm like, oh my God. So you guys have a working knowledge, most of you, of the areas that you're going to be over, okay? Or there are areas where you can kind of logically figure out what to pray for. So it's gonna be a blend of, if you don't hear from the pastor that month, don't worry about it. You make up your own list, of how to pray for these folks, So just know that that's a big part of your role. We want you to be very proactive. It's not strictly dictated from, well, I didn't hear from the pastor, so I just keep praying for the same things. That's the thing we ran into before. And, I think that people need to be praying for the same thing. There will be things that you pray for every day, but also it's good to have a fresh list, So you have the freedom to do that. Just know that. It's like, let's start praying for this week. Things like that. Very, very important. You need to be the one keeping your team motivated. Okay? How are you guys doing? Are you making sure you're praying every day with this? Whatever. What I recommend is, again, getting into logistics, is that pick a time each day, or maybe even, I don't know, but maybe once or twice a week, whatever you want to feel, that you're all going to be praying at the same time. So we all agree, okay, at noon, either every day or at noon on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're all going to stop whatever we're doing, and we're going to pray for 10 minutes over these items on our list, okay? There's just a power in corporate prayer in that way, okay? Again, it's your team. You get to run it how you like, how you want to schedule it. But you should be praying every day for at least some period of time about your ministry. So part of it is going to be, again, the biggest challenge that I've run into in this is apathy. Is just people just kind of get tired of doing it, And I had to talk with Roger Saltzman about this, and I said, so is it a matter of we just need to kind of really try to get them to get a lot of new information to them, keep them excited about it, or is it a matter of, hey, tough it out, you got to pray for these things for a while, and we opted for option number 2, and it was a matter of like, hey, you know what? There are things you got to pray for a long period of time, and that's part of what we do.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sorry that and again, I'm not talking to you guys because you're here and dedicated, but we live in a time where gratification is immediate. I thought about it the other day, like with cell phones. Remember when we didn't have cell phones and you had to just be someplace, and if you're going to be late, you're going to be late. It's like, that's it. I can't call ahead. I can't. I'm just going to, And at the time, that didn't seem like anything. But now, to leave I have that cell phone attached to me all times. I cannot move without it. And so it's like how much things change. Everything is immediate, So we're running counter against the idea that, this might be something you pray for a long, long time. And it's part of that is just part of your faith growing, and just the fact that, God's not going to answer it, forget it now. I said, no, it's a matter of His timing and His will. I just saw that. So that's part of your growth as just members of the kingdom, of saying, I'm going to pray for this for a while, and it's going to help my faith increase, and it's also going to benefit those who I'm praying for, okay?
Isn't prayer a gifting? Isn't it one of the gifts? Isn't it a spiritual gift? Because and I actually just looked these up yesterday. So I think it's a gift, but as Kelly was mentioning earlier, it's also a command. So it's a discipline.
Yeah.
Any discipline, reading the Word, prayer, go on and on. It takes work.
Yeah.
So there's going to be apathy in any spiritual discipline that we have. That includes prayer. That's what you're saying. I don't know that there's anything extraordinary you need to do to keep us happy about it. It's continuing.
Well, this is what I started out with. It's a choice, and that's strictly it. It's a matter of you choosing to do it or not, because it's not a matter of you have to have a certain gifting or a certain level of energy or time or whatever else. You have all those things for this, and so it's just a matter of you choosing to do it. And so that's why I put that up front. That so part of your job as leaders will be to tell your team, hey, how are you doing? Check in on them. If it's a matter of rearranging how you do your prayer, do that. But yeah, it's a matter of, ultimately, we're all grown-ups, we're all members of the kingdom, we make a choice, Yeah, Tricia.
I think it's perspective too, that's why I said it's about having a relationship with God.
Yeah.
So if you look at it more as I'm going to spend time with
Right.
my Father. I'm going to spend time in the presence of my Maker and build a relationship with Him, because we're to pray unceasingly.
Yes.
We're supposed to be praying all the time.
Yes.
And so we're supposed to be communing with Him. So it's more than just going to pray. I mean, it is going to pray
Mhm.
for someone on someone else's behalf, but it's really about having a relationship with God. So I think if you look at it that way,
Exactly.
it doesn't make it a chore or something you just have to do for like 10 or 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. That's the whole point of having a training this involved, where when you give it context like this, it's an opportunity. For instance, like Mark, you used to get up at 3:30 in the morning? Okay, Mark gets up at 3:30 in the morning to pray. I'm like, you are kidding me. And he's like, are you kidding me? I get to be with God the first 2 or 3 hours of my day. What more could I want? I was like, I should have that attitude, because that is, and Mark doesn't say that to brag about it, but he's excited to start the day with God. And I thought that is exactly how we should all approach it. So thank you. Part of what we do is listen to, update your team on answered prayers. These prayers have been answered. Listen to what they have to say, listen to their feedback, because they're going to have things to say like, I feel like God's telling me this about what's going on, so make sure you listen to what they have to say. Again, update them on prayer needs, about what's going on. Recruit more when you need to, and again, it's your team. I just require you have at least 2. After that, it's up to you. Provide prayer ministry leadership feedback and suggestions. If they're getting bored, if they're getting whatever, if they're having trouble with it, you can help them walk through different challenges. Creating opportunities and ways to pray in order to expand your team's prayer life and keep them, motivated. Mix it up. You're totally allowed to do whatever you want. If you guys want to hey, get together at the church and pray together, do that. If you want anything, there's so many different ways that you can pray and organize it. And you have my blessing on whatever you want to do. If you have any questions about it, is this okay? Just let me know, or I'll be happy to let you know. And also on this, just so while I'm thinking about it, if you guys have any questions at all, let me know. Mark right now, he's like the busiest guy in the world. He's busier than even most of us. So I don't want to put that on him. And let me know if you have any questions at all. Shoot me an email, give me a call, text me. If you have any questions about what anything's going on, just let me know, okay? And as Mark, kind of go back to what Mark said, you're called to this. This isn't a random thing. You guys are here for a reason. And the thing that we keep hearing again over and over this morning is what a privilege this is, to be in communion with God, take this as an opportunity to build my relationship with Him, and to pray over these ministries. I just think about, for everybody, the importance of the job you have. I think about, with Tricia, she's praying over, we have a growing group of widows in this church, That's part of us getting older as a church and maturing. And, my mom was a widow for a while. I know that walk. And the idea of having somebody pray over her, that to me is powerful. That's a huge thing. What a great, to me that would be, they're all a great opportunity. I just picked that one up as an example of just I get to do this. What's better than that? And I just think about this too, as I end this section, is that for me, I also think about the importance of what you're doing is helping to ensure the future of this church. On our end, we think a lot about not just the weekend service. We're thinking about the next 10 years, the next 20 years of this church, And Fred thinks beyond that. And so I think about, I want my kids to come to this church. I want my grandkids to come to this church. And so what am I doing now to ensure that's going to happen? What am I doing now to make sure that they will have a great church to come to? So think about it in those terms as well. As you're doing your job, you're helping to ensure the future of this church, which I think is a huge thing. So.
Yeah.
I think there's something, I want to share just a little bit of a story. My father-in-law was very strong in the Lord. He was a farmer, and I was a city boy. He played a lot of practical jokes on me off the farm. that I think in heaven today he's still laughing about. Yeah, and I won't tell you all of those, but some of them were not fair. But I was young, impressionable, and trusted him a lot. So he set me up several times. But the thing that I would say is, you know, he mentioned about my prayer life. Please, I don't want anybody to think that makes me better than somebody else, because it doesn't. It's what works for me. And what works for somebody, they should do. And some people pray in the evening, some people pray all day long. You know, for me, I've just got to get alone and with him, because he's got a lot of work to do on me. And so just take that with caution. It's not about a level of prayer or a more effectiveness of prayer. Some people can pray a phrase and get as much results as somebody that prays for an hour, okay? So I just want to give you that. I don't want anybody in here measuring themselves. Maybe someone in here is praying 4 hours a day, you know, or longer, you know, but I just want to make sure that's understood. So there is a word of encouragement in 1 John 4:4. But you belong to God, my dear children. You have already won a victory over those people, because the Spirit who lives in you is greater than the spirit who lives in the world. And I would remind that all of us, as we think about what we're taking on as a task, that is not of us. It is through the power and the strength of the Lord that we are given this opportunity to serve. So the next subject we want to talk about is accountability. And, you know, it's on page, if you want to look at a few notes, there's on page 8. Derek talks a little bit about what a leader does, and there's one that says, accountability, Lord. With privilege comes responsibility. One of the first things a leader learns is that leadership does not mean that you're better than or higher than or anything else with another person. You are the one that has gone before and learned the skill, and now you are putting in a responsibility to teach others, okay? And so when I look at the welcome ministry, when I first went in there, the first thing I did was I wanted to learn everything that our people did. And so I started doing their jobs, okay? I learned how to make coffee, how to do espresso, how to make a smoothie, how to go over to the bookstore, what's going on here, what do we got, how do you handle a customer, how do we greet, and how do we usher, and what's all the ramifications of that, and what's the parking lot, you know, and actually went out, and you saw me out there sometimes directing traffic because I needed to learn. How can I direct and show someone else if I have not yet done it? And so that's the first step of leadership, is guiding them through learning yourself and being an example to others. And so as you think about this as a leader and someone that's going to be leading a team, whether it be another person or 2 people, remember when 2 are gathered in his name, he is present, okay? And so we can pray in power. And so allow your people, it doesn't mean that you pray greater than they do. Maybe you have some people on your team that are just like, wow, would you pray, Ken? You know, because God speaks through them. So allow it to be what it is, but mostly understand that your importance is that we keep on task, we keep on focus of what we're supposed to be praying about and what we're trying to effect in prayer, okay? So we want you to feel an accountability to the Lord. And, when I raised our kids, when they got in their teenage years and we started setting a couple of curfews and different things in that, my parents and I grew up, when I would leave the house, they said, remember, you're a representation of our family. And I raised the bar. When our first daughter went out, 16, she said it wasn't fair. But she says, well, it worked. I said, remember, you are responsible to God first. If you can please Him, you will always please us. And she said, that was heavy pressure, Dad. You shouldn't have done it. But she said it worked. Because when I was offered drugs or I was offered alcohol or things like that, I go, wait a minute. Dad said I've got to be responsible to Him. And it took it off me because I'm imperfect. I'm not the one I want her to duplicate. Okay? And so as you think about what you're doing, our whole focus should be on Christ. You know, if you're showing someone to pray, hey, it's not hard. I didn't do it here in this class, but it wouldn't be hard to teach someone how to pray. If I went around the room and said, okay, Debbie, what's something you're thankful for? What's something you're thankful for?
My husband,
Okay, there you go. Brian, what are you thankful for? Rachel,
cancer-free.
cancer-free. Great. I can't see it.
Steve.
Steve, okay, thank you. Yeah.
My wife.
Your wife. Okay. That's prayer. God, thank you for my husband. Thank you for being cancer-free. I mean, you get it? That's all, you just taught someone how to pray. Everyone in here, everybody in here do that? Yeah, we can all do that. Okay, very good. So, prayer team members kind of drift and fade away at times. That may mean that God had them there for a purpose, and He may be calling someone else to be the prayer warrior. So as you lead through the year, we're asking you to be the one that you're consistent and you never give up. And that's part of the accountability. Members feel uninformed. Like, I don't know what to pray for. And sometimes you're going to feel like that. I go to the leader and they don't have anything to tell me. What am I going to do? Well, that's when you go to the Lord and say, Lord, you know the needs. You know what's about to happen that they don't even know is going to happen. And I pray that you will strengthen them and help them get through that and that you will show up. See, that's the prayer you can have in that time. Okay? There's always room for prayer. All right, and then when team members struggle in prayer, like I'm just struggling, I just can't seem to really feel what God wants me to be saying. That's when you have prayer over a phone with them, or you stop in the hallway out here and say, hey, let's just pray together. You know, God's will be done. So I would just encourage you in that. We expect, I think you went through expectations, so I won't go through that. That's it. I think we're done on that part.
Cool.
So I guess I'm supposed to go into ideas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to do this a little differently. I think my number one thing about, ideas to keep your team engaged. There's so many things. It's a small, I would definitely have a text type of connection because in today's world, what's really cool, I'm in marketing, I look at these things all the time. People only read about 50 to 60% of their emails. You may not know that. They read almost 100% of their text. Does anybody know why?
They're short.
Shorter, usually shorter,
A little personal.
more personal, yeah.
A little effort.
Most people immediately notified.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Part of it is because my phone keeps dinging because there's a message out there and you eventually have to hit it, they shut it up, okay? So people will open it up and they have a tendency to go, well, what do they want anyway? And so marketers say text is one of the best methods of reaching people today. So that's something how to connect with your people. The other thing is celebrate answers to prayer. And so you teach your team, say, hey, when you've been praying and all of a sudden you find out there's an answer, text me and let me know. And have it do as a group text where everybody gets to know. Because when that ding goes on, Dirk and I talked about this dream of having a prayer app, and we'd have to develop ourselves. I've gone in the open market and haven't found one that does all the bells and whistles I'd like to see. But what I would do is every time someone comes to Christ, everybody in the church would get a text and went ding, and you can do it so you have a certain ding,
Yeah.
and you would go, oh, it's like, what was the guy's name in the
Clarence.
movie?
George Bailey.
Yeah.
George Bailey and the
Yeah.
Angels.
Angels.
He got his wings, ding.
Yeah.
And how cool could that be as a church to go, wow. And I thought, can you imagine what would happen if we started tracking answered prayers? Do you realize how many answered prayers are answered in our fellowship here alone? Our phone would be going ding, 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 because there's that much going on. It'd be so cool, But celebrate is very important to keep your focus. And then share ideas. Hey, what do you think would keep us together? Maybe every once in a while, maybe once every 6 months, once a quarter, have a potluck. You know, meet at your house or somebody's house, or even here. I mean, we can carve out a room and just throw some food out and say, hey, let's just talk and pray together today. Just create opportunities. And I was thinking, when I first got called to Vineyard and before I actually got called to ministry, which Dirk and I have been very intimate in that conversation of what that looked like, and I will say this, once you're called, there's just nothing you can do about it. You know, it's indelibly imprinted upon your brain, and the experience I had, the one that Dirk had, and others have had, there's a couple, Norman's had that, you know what like living with him right now, with this burning desire that's within him to fulfill what God's called him to do. And if you meet people like that, you know they're driven because they've got to go get done. Fred had no choice. He had to go do what God told him to do, because once you have that experience, you have to fulfill it. And it's not a negative. It's an incredible, exciting journey, even though when God does this, it's usually short, couple words, and you go like, what does that mean? You know? I remember years ago, I was had a pretty cool career going, and I'm in prayer, and Pat and I have this routine that we've been through. Give you a little history. In the 80s, we were going through a series at a church in Texas that was about stewardship, and it was about time, talent, treasure. And we came home, and Pat said, well, you know, we give the first of our money, and we're trying to give the best of our talent. And she said, but are we giving the best of our time? And I go, wait a minute, well, what do you mean? She goes, no, I'm talking about the first of our time. She said, we need to get up early so that we can pray and put God first in the morning. And we had children at home at that time. And I go, you know, that means like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning? Is there a 5 o'clock in the morning? You know? And so she said, I'm serious. And I go, okay. So we started it. And then it grew into 2 hours because we were having such a great time in the Lord, because we would have our own individual time in the Word and in prayer, and then we'd have this time of fellowship together talking about what we'd learned that day. It just really was an incredible experience. We're like, we cannot not do this, okay? So God's going to move in you in a very powerful way, but when I was in this journey that led to Vineyard here, I was sitting in my office at home. I was doing entrepreneurial work and a few other things, and God said, you need to go pray over that campus. So I called Tony Wilkes and I said, you don't know me very well, but God's told me I need to pray over your land. I need to know what is the perimeter, because I'm supposed to walk the entire perimeter. And so he gave me a map. He sent me a map. Here's the map. And I did. I started praying. And I thought, what am I going to pray? And of course, the day that I was to pray was a very windy, cold, rainy day. And I thought, Lord, really? And so I came out and I started walking it. And along the way, I got close back to the building here, and God gave me a vision of what was going on here. And what I saw was angels perimeter all the way around. And they were standing with swords like this. And what God was telling me is, this is my land. And he says, I have cast my protection upon it, that my will be done. I was emotionally moved and still moved. It was interesting because I didn't know where Fred's office was. And I ended my walk and I was leaning up against his office wall praying. And I was praying for him. And had no idea that was his office. So, as you take this journey in this next year, God is going to give you thoughts. Act on them. And pray on them. And watch the living God move in your midst. That's why I pray today. That's why I go to His Word. because I cannot wait to see what God is going to do. To see His hand in my midst is just, everybody, I see the heads going up down. If you've experienced this, as you will in prayer, there's nothing sweeter than being in His presence. My journey started in the early morning. The very first early was, I tried to picture myself going before the King. I'm a servant to the King. And each morning I would get up and I would visualize this palace. And I would walk down this, it seemed like forever walk down this one hallway, and it would enter into this huge room, and ahead of me was this throne. And I would walk, and by the time I got closer and closer to the throne, before the living God, the more I would bow. Because He was so pure and perfect, I did not understand that purity. And I would find myself just almost prostrate before Him. And the question would be, Lord, what is your bidding today? What is it that you want to carry out your will through my life today? And so as I share that with you, that's a little bit of intimacy of myself and what's going on in my prayer life. I would just offer you up the opportunity to explore the Lord in this experience that He's called you to. Because a year from now, maybe even, it could be 30 days from now, I don't care how busy I am. You text me, you grab me in the hall, you throw me to the ground if you have to, and you say, "You're not going to believe what God just did." And I'll be going, "That's praise Him together." Because that is true joy, and that is true life. That is true living. You come alive in Him. And I want to be a part of that journey. Okay. All right, sir. We're supposed to do a whiteboard session on ideas.
Yeah, we can do whatever you want.
Okay.
I mean, not whatever you want, but if you want to skip it, that's fine, whatever you want to do.
Okay, what time do we have? Because we got a couple of things we still want to get done. All right, we're right at 11 o'clock. We're going to not be taking you all the way to noon. I think we had till noon.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I think we talked a little bit just about these ideas, and so I'd like to hear from you. And I'll just say you have to do the whiteboard. I'll just write down some things. So I got a clean piece of paper. Popcorn now. Pop. Ideas.
A couple things.
Okay.
And it's probably, I'm just going to say, I'm certain everyone is thinking of it. We all have our individual ministries that we're going to pray over and really take ownership of and be hopeful for. I think that would include this group as well, for each other. We need to pray for one another. Constantly.
Confirmation, we have lots of
That would be our first prayer for each
speaking.
and every one of us.
Amen.
Secondly, it was mentioned before, what was it? It was, before you go, or if you have something against your brother, lay your gift at the altar, then go to him, to be reconciled with your brother, and then come back to the altar. I'm going to make this a practice. If I'm not in a prayerful mood, but I'd say every 2 o'clock on Tuesday, I commission myself to pray, but I just got cut off and my heart is not in the right place, I'm probably not going to pray right there. I will have to defer to where I can gather myself and put myself in a spirit, a Holy Spirit, to where I can honestly sit down, consider the task at hand, and then pray. If I just slam my hand in the cardboard, it's probably not time to sit down and go, "Oh, Jesus." Probably not in the right heart.
You might say, "Oh, Jesus."
Jesus.
Oh,
With humility, let's not forget that we, although not of this world, we're still in it. And somehow the evil one will affect us in small ways.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very careful of that.
Count on that.
Yeah. So be just prepare your heart.
That's smart.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I think we don't talk a lot about spiritual warfare, but it is going to happen. It is going on right now. And so especially if you stand out for the Lord, there may be attacks. You just have to recognize it and release it in the power of God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you're like me, sometimes when you're praying, you have like a visual image in mind. And I'd just like to remind us that Vineyard Church this is not the only campus.
That's
Oh,
right.
good, yeah.
That Liberty and Brighton do
Very
exist.
Yeah.
And so when you're praying for your different ministries, be thinking about
Very smart.
So glad you brought that up.
the people who maybe have never even come to this building.
Yeah, that's
Right.
great. Tricia, what were you gonna say?
Well, I just wanted to kind of comment on what he was saying about praying for us as a group, because there will be spiritual warfare, because there's power in prayer, and the enemy will try to stop it.
Mhm.
So I don't know if maybe as a group we could agree to pray continuously for each
Yeah, yeah,
other,
yeah.
Amen.
for protection.
Mhm.
I definitely, we've trained a few groups. It's the first time this has really come up, and it just makes so much sense. I'm thankful for this coming out today. I think we do need to cover, as we pray in our year, is remember that we have a group of people you've had fellowship with today that are going to be on mission for the cause of Christ. Let's pray for one another.
Is there a list of the groups?
Yeah, I was,
I can send it out to you, yeah. I got a list made out.
anybody else? We got some really strong prayer warriors in this room. Some of you I know a little better than others, but just listening to the conversations today, we got some very strong prayer warriors.
What's really neat about our group is evangelism. So as we pray for the evangelistic groups that you tell us to pray for, we can partake, be a part of that also. So we gotta get the two-way thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
I always pray for evangelism because I am not gifted that way. And I just think it's incredible that God, yeah.
That's the ones that use it the most, by the way. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, yeah, true. That's how he rolls.
There's so much truth to that.
Yeah, there is.
What else do you have?
Is this good another time to take a break and then we can?
And we'll do the firewall.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a suggestion on how to keep it fresh.
Mm.
We're talking about the calendar that God gave us and created for us and for the Jewish people. And now, as you know, we also celebrate some of those things. Within every 2 months, there is some celebration, some observance, and something that they stop everything for and thank God, or allow God. One of them is the rite of forgiveness, the renewal. Another one is at the end of the year, they have a Hanukkah, we have the Christmas celebration, the birth of Christ. There's the beginning of the planting, and then there's the harvest time. There's the in-between time when they celebrate family and the gifts of God. So God gives us this time, He wants us to take a break and celebrate. Remember Him and just stop the work for a little bit and remember. So maybe as we think about on the calendar the things that happen, maybe it's the beginning of the school year, maybe of course Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and the New Year and things that are common in our people that will be on our prayer teams, those things of celebration or pausing or preparation. What are the good steps and good things to remember about that? And we can incorporate that into that month's or that 6 weeks period of times. Hey, okay, we don't have a list of exact prayers. I'll be praying for a worship leader. Well, okay, don't know exactly what's going on in his life, but at this time, God set this time for us to think of renewal, rebirth, recommitment, cleansing, whatever it might be. We're reaping the harvest of that which is sown in us. The seed now is emerging from the soil, and so use those times. We don't know the exact thing to pray, but don't let that stop, because this is a season. Now this next month, we're going to celebrate and pray about these things for that ministry, or these things for that person, or and use those topics that we try to remember. Forgiveness maybe is one of them. Just something that, and hold those up to be the refreshing thing, and it's something people can remember because in their daily lives they're in front of it. Giving, generosity, and then humility and accepting a gift, and those can all be done seasonally and in line with our lives, so we don't get our prayer time interrupted by lifetime. And we can incorporate the prayer time as our life. So that helps those who have very busy schedules, who are on our prayer team. You're already doing this, you're already thinking of this, now let's incorporate that into the prayer, and that becomes the prayer is their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think this is a very important point that you're bringing up, Anita, and that is celebration. Because what mostly happens in these groups and as leaders and everything is everybody's thinking, well, don't you have any needs? What needs do I need to be praying for? And we're all talking about, what do you need to pray for? What's happening you need prayer over? And sometimes we need to be asking that question, what can we celebrate? What can we thank God for that's happening in your ministry? Because there's always something to be thankful for. If they don't have any major issues going on, then we should be celebrating. Right.
You could say,
That's a praise.
if Christmas time's coming, or Thanksgiving time, okay, what is it that you're most thankful for that you'd like to see more of? What are you more thankful for that you also, that you have a need for, or that you know a need for others that help to support you? I'm just thinking, pray for the worship leader, what would I do, pray for them? If they don't specifically have an idea, then, okay, let's think about that now. Christmas time, all right, this is rebirth, we know, what do you think would be a key area of rebirth, or renewal, or a celebration of a child, or from a childlike perspective, or from, save the world perspective, whatever it could be. And by the time you just ask that question, there should be 3 or 4 things already emerging. Anyway, you won't have to even dive into it deeper.
Yeah. When you think about it, there's probably close to 800 volunteers that serve every weekend. And the ministry I have, it's over 200. Kids is somewhere around 300. I mean, that's 550 there. That doesn't count the emergency team, the music teams, you start adding it up, and you get some of the teachers and all the, in the kids program. I mean, there is so much going on here. We have a lot to be thankful for. I'm thankful every time people show up. Because, there's
You
been
showed up for your volunteer work, yay!
It is a blessing. It is a blessing.
It is.
here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll tell you, there was, I had an experience about 3 months ago, and we had no one show up in the cafe. And one was sick, everything, anything could happen, happened. I'm standing behind there, and as a pastor, we're not supposed to touch the money, so I'm not supposed to be handling the register, and people are wanting me to sell them cookies and stuff, and I'm going what are we going to do? And I remember thinking, Lord, it's yours. I'm just going to put my full trust in you. And I watched before my eyes, all of a sudden somebody says, looks like you need help over here in the coffee. I'll take care of that part. And then my wife says, oh, I can do espresso. Then one of my cashiers walked in and says, did the cashier not make it? Oh, they're set. I can handle that. And it wasn't 15 minutes. And I was outside of the cafe looking in going, God manned it today. And they were joyous and happy and serving together and thinking, this is so much fun. And I'm thinking, Lord, we just need to keep giving it up to you. You've got this under, you've got this. So, anyway, great.
Should we have a meet outside?
Yeah, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and then we're gonna do a prayer walk, okay? And a couple of you, I'm gonna ask to pray. So if God leads you to feel like you should pray, then I would love to have you pray today, okay? And I'll kind of get you going into it, and then I'll set the stage of what we're trying to do here, okay?
So congregate outside the door when you get back after your break, and then we'll go from there. All right?
Thank you.
So, kind of what you've already got the commitment.
Can't do that.
Okay. And then we.
So basically, we do prayer walk. And we're supposed to pray on the walk, but when we do a prayer walk, I don't actually.
Pray over something. Yeah. Pray over something. I got prayer walk.
Texting
I'm always looking for a good
You wanna do that? You
Circles
were-
around
you were saying, I feel like you're.
I
love you so much.
You know how much you are, how much you love you, and I miss you so I wasn't being
You're
real.
more like
Years
years later.
Years later, that's the hard part.
Years later.
Yeah, well,
Years later.
let the people do a few things.
I know, it's funny sometimes, because I pray early in the morning too, and,
The things that
I will recall the name that I haven't been praying for recently, and,
Yeah.
okay, God, I'll pray for
You might
most
send me an
children.
I don't think it makes
I
sense.
know you want me to, but I have seen nothing happen here.
By Mark Patterson.
Oh, I've seen this book.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Really.
Well, this, we're more of a power.
Must have been my prayer.
I tied him up for a minute.
I could not sleep.
Thank you, yes.
I woke up and I said, well, I'm going down, I'm gonna go pray. And so, it was an incredible morning.
Good.
I
So
I
Rose, they have
sometimes
a question.
excuse
I guess
myself
we
with my
can-
nap.
I don't think the rest of the
I'm like, well, I gotta have a moment, I'm just.
We'll give it to you if he's the one that
Yeah,
I'll give it to you.
yeah,